Hey everyone, I'm Russ Terry, your host for another episode of Real Talk on Racism here on Princeton TV. We're grateful to you for watching. We have more great content and another fantastic guest for you today. All right, I am here with Major Ron Hathaway, retired U.S. Marine Corps. Major Ron, thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So I know you know our executive producer, Nick Mellis, who brought us together, and we were saying before we came on the air that you were telling some stories to him about racism that you experienced back when you were in Vietnam. And first of all, thank you for your service.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What are just a couple of those examples of racism?
Well, let me start back where I was raised. I was born in a little town called Havre de Grace, Maryland, back in 1942. The town was a segregated town, and we had separate theaters. We had restaurants and so forth where I could not go in because I was colored, and I was dealing with racism for a long time. So when I joined the military, it was nothing new to me because I was stationed at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, where there was a lot of racism in regards to the local people there, in regards to the city. I know a bunch of Marines and I went in town one time to go to a nightclub called the Bandbox in Jazzland, and we got to the club, and the big bouncer was staying there and saying that, hey, I can let you guys in, which are my white comrades, but I can't let him in. And so my buddy said, well, the hell with you. If you can't let him in, we won't come in. So we went back to the base, and we went to our normal, called Slop Shoot, which was our own NCO club. And from that point on, when I went to Vietnam, well, I'll put it this way, I went back a little bit. When we would get on a bus to come north, back in the 60s, you had to get in the back of the bus until you got to Richmond, Virginia, or Washington, D.C., and you could move anywhere you want on the bus back then. And along the way, going north, we stopped in Rocky Mount and places for, to rest stops. They had white fountains and black colored fountains. You couldn't go in the restaurant. You had to go around back to a window and order your food. And then you go back on the bus and eat your food. You couldn't eat in the restaurant. Those are some of the things that I experienced as a young Marine when I was coming up, let alone going to Vietnam. Now, going to Vietnam in 1966, I can't say there was a lot of prejudice going on there, but I felt this way. If I'm here fighting this battle, fighting this war, then I'm fighting for the freedom of the United States of America. Why can't I have the same rights as most white young men have in America? They were privileged. We weren't. Even when I came home from Vietnam, I still couldn't go in a restaurant and eat with my white friends in the South. I couldn't drink out of a fountain because it was colored, white. The bathrooms were colored, white. The theaters were, blacks went upstairs, or colors went upstairs, and whites sat downstairs. These things were still going on until the Civil Rights Movement in 1964. Then that changed a lot of things. And that was good for the country, I think, when Kennedy was trying to change the law because of all the unrest in the South. And I think because of the violence that was going on in the South, Kennedy woke up and said, I got to do something about this. Well, he started until he was assassinated. Then Johnson took over as president. When Johnson took over as president, he actually pushed through some of the things that Kennedy wanted as far as the Civil Rights Movement. And he passed the Civil Rights Bill in 1964. And that was a good thing, but still more had to be done. More had to be done because of the fact that even though the Civil Rights Bill was passed, there was still Jim Crow laws in the South that was still affecting black people from having the opportunity to do the things that we normally should have had opportunities to do, like maybe go to a restaurant and eat, go to a restaurant or go to a restroom where it wasn't segregated. Schools were segregated. Restaurants were segregated. Hotels were segregated. Back during the South in the 40s and 50s, they had this thing called the Green Book, which labeled where blacks could go and not be ostracized by racism or race or white supremacy. This book had a list of hotels where blacks were accepted, and they're usually run by black entrepreneurs. That was something that was really interesting in the 40s and 50s and 60s. But anyway, make a long story short, when I got to Vietnam, there was situations where I felt like I wasn't wanted. I know one time a commander, not a commander, but one of the sergeants wanted to send me back to Okinawa. And I felt like, no, I'm here to fight the war. He gave me that option. And I said, no, I'm staying here, I'm going to fight. Well, I ended up in some of the toughest operations as a combat photographer. That was my job. And I survived that. There were times where I felt that there was some inkling of racism within certain people, not just the government, but certain people that were practicing this. But I survived that, and I went on to be promoted, but I had to work twice as hard than the average white guy to be promoted. That was in every case. And then you go back in history with African Americans proving themselves as worthy. You talk about the Tuskegee Airmen who fought in World War II, that proved themselves that they were capable and had the intelligence and the experience to go to combat and fight the war and help us to win. And the Tuskegee Airmen, I think, also helped to desegregate the military because of their pride, their bravery, the fact that they flew out Saudis in World War II, and they were very successful at it. And they were awarded various decorations, flying crosses, distinguished flying crosses, distinguished medals and so forth, distinguished service medals. And they were very, very instrumental in actually helping to desegregate the military. And then you had also the Moffett Point Marines. In 1942, they finally organized a unit of Marines at Moffett Point, North Carolina, right outside of Camp Lejeune, to enlist Marines, black Marines. And they proved themselves in Iwo Jima, Saipan, and Okinawa. So these units basically led the way for the military to be desegregated. And that was really awesome, and their legacy stands today. And I stand on their shoulders as a Marine myself. And I came to Marine Corps as a private and retired as a major.
What was that last part you said?
I came to Marine Corps as a private and retired as a major. So because of their efforts and their achievements within the military, I was able to stand on their shoulders. And I was able to go through the raindrops without getting wet, or go through the minefield without stepping on anything. But it wasn't hard. It wasn't easy. It was a difficult situation because I had to really be on my toes and be sharp and be professional all the way. And even though I had 18 years as an enlisted man, I was a master sergeant, E8, when I took the plunge to become a warrant officer. And then when I became warrant officer 2, I switched over to what they call LDO, limited duty officer, which went from warrant officer to first lieutenant. And the reason why I did that is because of the fact that I knew I was going to stay for 30 years. And I was going to be terminal as an enlisted man. I was E8 at 18 years. And then as a warrant officer, I knew I could make CWO4 within that period of time. I'd be terminal. So I decided to go to LDO where I could go up to lieutenant colonel. But I got as far as major in 30 years. I did 33 years, 4 months, 16 days totally. And I'm really proud of my achievements in my career in the Marine Corps.
Well, as you should be, and I love living history and hearing you share the good and the bad experiences that you had. First, I want to comment, you said you were born in 1942,
42.
and I'm doing the math here, so that means that this year
I'll be 80.
Which blows my mind. I mean, I thought you were maybe 60.
Well, thank you.
So
thank you. I appreciate that.
it's not related to racism, but what's your number one key for healthy living and looking so young and vibrant at almost 80?
Well, I think when I was in the Marine Corps, I was into physical fitness. And the Marine Corps is into physical fitness. When I retired, I continued working out, doing sit-ups, riding my bike 10 miles, doing crunches and so forth, lifting weights. I didn't give up. And I think the key to longevity is to stay physically fit. Watch your diet, watch your salt, watch your sugar. Because in my family, diabetes is in my DNA. And I have family members that have lost limbs because of diabetes.
As it is for many black people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I really watched out for that and watched my diet, watched my sugar, and continually stayed physically fit. And that's the key. And, like I gave up drinking and smoking in Vietnam in 1968.
Wow.
Now, I didn't drink and smoke until I got to Vietnam. I mean, when I got home on leave or furlough, I'd put a nipple on a bottle of Jim Beam, and him and I were like this, you know what I mean? So, but I gave up drinking after I came home because my mother saw that I was really tagging it down. And she said, Ronald, and when she calls me Ronald, I know she's serious. You know? Ronald, I see you sitting with your buddies and you guys drink that whole bottle of Jim Beam. And that woke me up. And I said, well, she's got a point. I says, but I didn't smoke and drink until I got to Vietnam. And I was using that as a pillar for me to get over my post-traumatic stress and stuff like that, you know. The things that I've seen in Vietnam. And being a combat photographer, I've seen things that I can't unsee. I've seen things that you would not believe in combat. Even we have what they call a peer group that we meet every Monday at the Town and Country Diner in Bordentown. And a bunch of all of us, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, we meet every Monday at 10 o'clock. And we talk about our problems so that we don't get wrapped up in this post-traumatic stress or get to a point where we can't handle it. So we discuss our situations with each other in the group. That's what I call the peer group. And it really helps. It helps the guys there, it helps me, and it helps me to deal with the guys so I can give them my experience and what I went through. And we share that. And it helps those guys to stay straight and narrow. It's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and I think many times as men, we don't seek the mental health help that is available, whether through a one-on-one psychologist or therapist or this peer group, like you said. So
Sure.
I give you and everybody that joins you a lot of credit because I think that's very valuable time well spent, absolutely.
Definitely, definitely.
So based on what you've said so far, it sounds like the racism in the South here in the U.S. before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was worse than what you experienced in Vietnam. Is that accurate?
Yes, it was, because the thing of it is that when I was in the South, even though I was raised in Maryland, which is below the Mason-Dixon line, Maryland is considered a southern state. And they practiced that. Even when I was in high school, we were in an all-colored school. Matter of fact, my class was the largest at that time to graduate from this all-colored school in Havre de Grace Consolidated School in Maryland. Our class was about 44. And they didn't integrate the school until 1965, 67. They were holding off for whatever reason. They finally integrated the school, and they turned the school that I graduated from into a middle school. Now it's all integrated now. But I think the young people today don't realize what African Americans went through during that time. They feel that it never happened because they didn't experience what we did as back in the 60s, 50s. They think everything was just normal until we teach them and tell them what it was all about. They need to know those things, you know, how they came about. And they need to make sure they never forget what those amendments are all about.
Yeah, well, your mission is excellent and much needed, and I think, when for those of us that were born after that, we didn't experience it. Certainly for those of us who are white, we didn't experience, I didn't experience it. So I'm grateful to you for sharing it. And hopefully, I'm guessing there are lots of others that appreciate you sharing it too. So you said a minute ago, went through hell, which again, I'm very sorry to hear that you experienced that. What's one particular example of racism toward you? I know there are probably countless examples that you could share, but...
Well, I was married to a Caucasian. My wife and I traveled down south. At the time, we were married in 1974. At the time we came to Camp Lejeune, we were looking for housing. And I remember this realtor gave us some keys to some houses. So they were dumps. And that offended me very much. I reported that to the government because I am part of the federal government. I fought for this country in Vietnam. I served the country for the freedoms that these people have. But yet they can deny me equal housing under the law. So we ended up getting base housing because out in town just wasn't, my wife was white and I was black, and some people still had that feeling that they cannot deal with interracial marriages. And so that was a problem that my wife and I had in the beginning, and my kids and so forth. But we overcame that, and we survived. But we lived in base housing, and everything was well then because we were on base, and we didn't run into that type of situation on the base where when we went outside the base, then you ran into those types of things. So that worked out well for us by being on the base itself.
Wow. Well, again, I'm sorry to hear that you experienced that too. And one thing I do know is that you have very strong character, even though we're just meeting today, and I'm inspired by you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So you mentioned some things today that I have to confess I don't know offhand exactly what they are, even though I've heard of them. So I'm going to do a quick, Q&A, help to educate me and hopefully others, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right. So first, Jim Crow laws in the South. I've heard of them, but I don't know exactly what they are or were. I don't remember. What are they, or what were they?
Well, the Jim Crow laws were laws that actually kept segregation in place. They would have a law that you couldn't eat in a restaurant, had separate theaters, separate schools, separate hotels, transportation. You had to sit in the back of the bus. These are laws that they proclaimed were the Jim Crow laws. Unfair housing, the whole 9 yards. Unfair housing as far as getting finances for buying a house, so forth. These were Jim Crow laws that restricted us as a black individual from having the same rights as white people had. And they kept it in place for a long time until certain laws were passed where it shut down the Jim Crow laws. Some of the laws that civil rights movements and some of the Bill of Rights changed all that, and they couldn't do that anymore. It shut them down. But until that time, Jim Crow laws were in effect. They definitely believed in segregation. And interracial marriages, forget it. That wasn't going to happen in their Jim Crow laws. You couldn't eat in a restaurant with white folks. You couldn't go to a theater except you had to sit upstairs.
So how did you and your wife, you were married while the Jim Crow laws were still in effect?
No, this is long after.
Oh, okay, got it.
But I'm just saying, some people still felt there was still something that they needed to still practice.
Got it.
Even
after.
It was against the law for them to do that, but there were some people who still felt that way, especially being interracial marriage. So.
Got it. So even though the laws eventually changed, the minds of many people were not changed, and they were determined, as we're still seeing today, that there are still people who are racist.
Well, look at it this way. The South lost the war. This was their way of continuing their war since the Emancipation Proclamation came about. This is their way of saying, we lost here, but we're going to win here.
Hmm.
And back during slavery, during the time that they freed the slaves, 1868 and things like that, they had this law that would actually, fugitive law, slaves back then. I don't really know about that, but you heard this movie called 12 Years a Slave?
Yes.
Okay. That was based on that. This law, fugitive law, stated that if a plantation owner came north and got you, the law stated he could bring you back to the plantation. Yeah. This was what they call the fugitive law. And that's where you heard this movie, 12 Years a Slave. This was a free slave in the north. And they captured him and brought him back to the plantation.
And that still existed up until the Civil Rights Act of 1964?
No. This was during 1868 when this happened, and during the Civil War, after the Civil War. But I've just brought that up because of a little trivia there as to what was going on then.
Yeah.
But for example, when Eisenhower passed the Civil Rights Law in regards to fair housing, it wasn't for us. You remember, I don't know if you know about the guy, but Levittown?
Levittown, PA?
Levittown, PA, yeah. They built all these houses. And what they did was, Levitt was building all these houses to have white folks buy these houses to help them to have some type of income or wealth. In most cases, when you buy a home, that's all the wealth you have,
right,
with equity and so on and so on. But white folks were privileged. They had these houses built all over the place, even in Jersey here.
Hmm.
But black folk were not given the same opportunity for housing until they passed the housing law in the Civil Rights Movement. They were given bad loans. They were not able to get loans. If they got loans, the interest rate was sky high. This is during the early 60s, going into the 70s. We were discriminated against, and prejudiced too. And this is where the racism came in big time. As you know, racism is both of those things. Discrimination,
and prejudice.
And prejudice.
Got it.
Together.
Yeah.
And those things were practiced back then. But as Martin Luther King said, we shall overcome. And we have come a long way. And I think we still have a long way to go. And as you see right now in America right now, today, you see racism is rearing its ugly head again in our society. And that is really worrisome to me, because you see white supremacists coming strong, and they're not wearing hoods anymore.
Hmm.
They're saying what they feel without a hood, and it seems like it's okay.
Hmm.
So we're going backwards.
Which is terrible. And
we're going backwards.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, but as a military man that's fought for the freedom of this country, you have a right, your First Amendment right, your Second Amendment right, you have the right to do that, own a weapon. But I fought for those rights, and I feel like it's a slap in the face that I'm not given all those rights as the average white man has. And I think that we got a ways to go yet. And with this situation in America right now, I think that the racism is going full bore now. And I feel that, this is my opinion, you can take it whatever way if you like it, or you can edit this out, but the white race is going to be in the minority in the next few decades.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay? And what's happening when you talk about abortion rights and all that kind of stuff, the reason why I think the abortion thing is such a high agenda item for white folks is because they see that their race is gradually getting smaller and smaller and smaller. White women now are not having babies, they want careers. The fact that the abortion laws that they're trying to pass in the South and some places in Georgia Arizona and Texas, and all those kind. They want to keep the white race the dominant race in the country. That's why these abortion rights are going so strong.
I believe you.
That's what's all about. Let's face it. That's what it's all about. And they're afraid that if the people of color become the majority in this country, that we will treat them like they treated us during the slavery for 400 years. The Indians, blacks, Hispanics, so forth and so on. And you know what whites have done to these people over the years. That's what white people are afraid of, to be honest with you. I'm not afraid of it because I am a centrist. I believe if you treat me right, I'll treat you right. I'll treat you as the Bible says. I'll treat you as you treat me. So that's the way I feel. But there are a lot of people who don't feel that way. They won't give us that chance to feel that way because they're trying to put laws in place right now all over the country that whites will dominate this country forever. Democracy to me is for white folk. Because when the Constitution was written, we were slaves. Jefferson wrote the Constitution, but it didn't include us. So the white man. Until the laws started changing, they added amendments, and this and that, so forth. The 15th Amendment, the 13th Amendment, the First Amendment, which changed that. 15th Amendment, abolished slavery. Until those things came about, then we started getting a seat at the table. But we're still not there totally.
Well, I know we're not there yet, and our mission here at the show is to try to spread the word about these very important issues. And I stand with you as an ally on this mission, and we want to spread the message that racism is still happening, and these are the things that people watching can do about it.
Exactly. I think in America right now we need love, not hate. And I think if we are true Christians, we'll love our neighbors as we love ourselves. If we can do that, we can change this. But like I said, unless that happens, we can destroy this country.
Well,
we can destroy it.
I agree 100%, and love, not hate is a fantastic message and a great note to end on. Thank you, everybody, for watching today. We're here with Major Ron Hathaway, retired from the U.S. Marine Corps. Thank you so much for being our guest. You're welcome here at Real Talk on Racism. I'm Russ Terry. Thanks for watching.